Welcome to Ask a Lawyer. And now joining us is Rod Smith.
It's good to be here.
Let's talk about wage and hour law and any confusion that people might have between commissions and paychecks.
I get calls from employees all the time, and now I'm getting more and more calls from employers who are very confused about the wage and hour laws. And what I tell them is, I think there's this kind of a historic belief that just because somebody's on commission that they're exempt from overtime provisions, they're exempt from the minimum wage provisions, when in fact that's not true. There are very strict restrictions that apply to people. The size of the number of hours worked is still important. You may be paying a person as commissioned, but if they don't reach a certain level of commission from their earnings, they are not exempt from the overtime provisions. And so you have an employee out there working several hours to make this commission, and the fact of the matter is they may have a claim for a claim that they've been underpaid, and significantly underpaid in terms of what the overtime laws require. And what a lot of people don't understand is that under the wage and hour law, if in fact you've underpaid someone, the penalty is usually not just that you have to pay them that amount, but you have to pay them twice that amount in liquidated damages, plus you have to pay their attorney's fees. And it doesn't matter that their claim may be very small. So I've had employers come in here and we've determined that they somehow have underpaid someone by $1,000 or so. But if an attorney has filed that case in federal court, you may be looking at thousands and thousands of dollars in attorney's fees that you have to pay. You may be having to pay liquidated damages equal to the amount of the underpayment. So I tell employers all the time, make sure you talk to someone. And I also find that a lot of employers are now relying on leasing companies. And they think that leasing companies always know the answer. Well, they really don't all the time. Leasing companies oftentimes all they're doing is they're taking what you give them, transmitting that, and doing the record keeping for you. They don't stand behind the decision as to whether or not somebody's properly classified. If you have a question, you need to call a lawyer. Same thing for employees. I get calls all the time from employees who find out that they've been told that they have to go to work at a certain time, but they're not to clock in till a later time. You can't do that. I have people who are told that they must pick the truck up in one location and drive the truck to another location to do the job. Once you're on the clock is once you get in that first truck if you are instructed to pick it up and take it somewhere. And these things can translate to significant causes of action for employees and significant employment expenses for employers if they're not done correctly. My answer is make sure you call a lawyer if you got a question about that. Don't find out too late.
Let's back up a bit and talk about employee leasing. If you're an employer and you hire one of these companies, that does not let you off the hook legally, does it?
Many an employer has found out after the fact that the employee leasing company does not stand liability, that the liability is largely, oftentimes, unless you've got specific terms to the contrary, the liability is still upon you as the employer. The wage and hour division and a private attorney will look to you for the liability. It's usually not going to be enough to say, well, yeah, but I sent this information to the employment leasing company. They won't get you off the hook.
Okay, if a car salesperson or an RV salesperson gets commissions on their sales, are they also required to receive an hourly wage?
A lot of people think that because you are on a commission, you automatically are exempt from both the minimum wage provisions and the overtime provisions. Neither one of those things is true. It depends on the particular circumstances of how you work and how much money you have made over an average period of time. And if you don't fall within those, then of course the employer is at jeopardy and the employee is underpaid. And once again, the penalties are significant because they are liquidated damages plus all fees and costs. So it's important that records be kept appropriately, and that it is determined that the person with their commission, contemplating the period of time they work and the total amount they have earned, all those things have to be factored in. And you may find yourself owing a lot more money to an employee than you thought you did.
So this is another situation where it pays to get the information in advance.
Got a question, it's the thing to do is call a lawyer and get the answer.
Rod, let's talk a little bit about family medical leave.
One of the most recent changes under the law, of course, during the Clinton administration, they passed the Family Medical Leave Act, which basically says that an individual, to take care of a child, to take care of another family member, typically someone who lives within that family, a husband or wife, sometimes a parent under unique circumstances, may be entitled to take off work for a period of time of up to 12 weeks within a year without pay, but have the right to return to their employment. Typically, you have to be an employer that has 50 or more employees within 75-mile radius. So the fact that you work somewhere and they may only have 10 or 15 employees, if that same company has a location in, say, Ocala and has a location, say, in Stark, you will combine those to see whether or not they have the sufficient number of employees. And if they do, I've had employees come in here already recently who are entitled to get their jobs back and entitled to sue for damages arising out of the fact that they were wrongfully terminated in violation of the Family Medical Leave Act. It's important that people understand that the Family Medical Leave Act creates a right to go to court and creates a right to specific damages. If you don't know whether you're covered or not, you need to check on it.
The laws really change fast, so we really need to keep up with those changes.
Many an employer has been surprised to find out they owe a lot more than they thought they did.
We'll be back with more Ask a Lawyer.